Welcome back into the channel. 5 weeks of the NFL season are all but in the books, and in today's video, we are going to react to every single game except for Chiefs versus Jaguars. That reaction will be on the channel later tonight, but we're going to react to every single Week 5 game, give you my analysis of each game, what I thought of the game, and where I think the teams are headed from here. I am recording this at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time because I got work at 9 a.m. and if that doesn't earn me a like from you, I don't know what does. Hit the button. Let's talk about the Week 5 action. Starting real quick with the Thursday night football game. There is a full reaction to this up on the channel now if you want to check that out. But the 49ers moved to 4-1, winning 26-23 over the Los Angeles Rams. I saw a lot of commentary in that video. The 49ers, I believe, after this game showed that they are a legit playoff team because no starting quarterback. Brandon Ayuk hasn't played all year. George Kittle on the IR. No Ricky Pearsall. No Jawan Jennings. To go to LA short week against a Rams team that is really good. Stafford leads the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns right now, and be able to win with Mac Jones, McCaffrey, Kendrick Bourne, and no Nick Bosa on your defense shows to me that the coaching staff in San Francisco between Shanahan and Saleh is absolutely 1,000% excellent at this point in time. And when they finally get that offense healthy, I think that they will be a threat to beat anybody on any given week. Another point of how good the coaching staff is, San Francisco's 3-0 in division and 3-0 on the road this season. Those are very important things that signify coaching. I don't think that the Rams have anything to be particularly worried about in this game. I thought they shot themselves in the foot quite a couple times. The fumble from Kyren Williams was pretty bad in this game and just some sloppy play all around. But in terms of the macro of this season, losing to the 49ers, being 3-2 with the Niners schedule, likely to me points to it's more likely now than before this game that the Rams are going to be a road team all playoffs. And we've seen the Rams do it before, but we've also seen the Rams struggle, and to not have games in your dome in SoFi and to have to go on the road, whether that be to Philly, to Green Bay, to Detroit, to Tampa Bay, is a tough ask of any team. And the Rams are going to have to do 2 or 3 of those games that we just mentioned to get to a Super Bowl this year. I think the talent is still on the roster, but this is a game that really could hurt you when it comes to NFC playoff standings in the future. The Minnesota Vikings pick up a win in London, 21-17. Carson Wentz leads a game-winning drive with a game-winning touchdown pass to Jordan Addison, who was benched for the first quarter of this game because he toured London by himself and left the team. I don't know what that's all about, but I don't know if Minnesota at this point in time has the liberties to be suspending players for quarters for visiting tourist attractions, but I digress. They still won this football game. Wentz looked better this week than he did last week. Jordan Mason looked a little bit better this week than he did last week versus Pittsburgh. Ultimately, even with, the question marks at quarterback, I do think Minnesota is just overall a more talented team than Cleveland. I thought Minnesota came out and handled the lack of offensive line pretty well, considering the fact how many sacks, 3 sacks in this game. 3 quarterback hits, so not that bad considering most of their offensive line is hurt. I thought Dillon Gabriel played okay, but there are just kind of limitations to his play creation. I feel like a lot needs to be there for him. Again, he was very successful in college in his time in college because he was in good offensive systems in college. To me, the definition of a system quarterback is probably Dillon Gabriel, but when I do look at the Cleveland Browns overarching future with guys like Judkins, Njoku, Bond, Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson. There's a lot of offensive talent there. The defense, of course, is strong. If they got their guy at quarterback, I do think the Browns could be pretty dangerous, if I'm being completely honest with you. Jefferson, another 100-plus yard game overseas. So now that Carson Wentz has gotten in there, he's at least elevated their passing game week after week to be able to sustain production out of Jefferson and out of Addison. If there's one thing you're not going to say about Carson Wentz, is that he's, afraid to sling the rock. That dude will throw any given ball at any given time. This is a big win for Minnesota. They're still floating above 500. Maybe they can get some of that magic back that they had last year. Like I said in a lot of the preseason videos, do I think Minnesota is going to win 14 games this season? I don't. But am I convinced that they're going to fall below 500? I'm not necessarily convinced of that either. They get a tough, grinded out win versus a Cleveland team that, despite their 1-4 record, we know is pretty competitive. They did hand the Packers a loss a few weeks ago. So Minnesota 3-2 moving forward. A game that I obviously have a lot to say about. For those that don't know, I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan, but I'm going to start this by giving the Broncos their flowers as they hand the Philadelphia Eagles their first loss of the year, 21-17 in favor of the Broncos. I thought that this was always destined to be a pretty strong defensive matchup. The Broncos defense really did get going in that second half there and helped keep them alive in this game for an 18-0 fourth quarter win, which, gave them the W in this game. I thought Bo Nix had an up and down game, but when he needed to make plays in the fourth quarter, he absolutely did. That rushing attack with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey and even a little bit of Bo Nix is something real. They have upgraded that. We talked about this offseason as to why I believed in Denver. I thought their offense was going to be two-dimensional, and I feel like we've started to see that pick back up over the last few weeks as Bo Nix has polished his play. Courtland Sutton did absolutely great in this game. Courtland Sutton was 8 for 99, and he was having his way with Quinyon Mitchell, who I do think is a top 5 corner in the sport, but some matchups just aren't good matchups, and Courtland Sutton's big body, he was able to really position himself well and dominate in this football game. I thought that the Denver Broncos offensive line as well did a pretty good job overall against Philly's defensive line. Philly only gets 2 sacks in this game compared to Denver's 6, so Denver's defense stepped up, and Bo Nix in that offense made plays when they needed to. The bigger story to me is what's going on in Philadelphia, and where do we start from here? And I want to be clear what I'm about to say. I am never a blame the refs guy. I think if you put yourself in a position where the referees can dictate the outcome of the game, you didn't do enough to win. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the officiating in this game that I did think skewed Denver's way, which for Denver, if you're a Broncos fan, I get it. You're like, hey, it's finally our turn to get a break. That game versus the Colts, we should have won that game. So nothing that I'm saying here is to discredit Denver. But for all the Eagles fans or people that are going to panic over this loss, I do want to just add some perspective. An intentional grounding call that I don't even think is really legally supposed to be picked up by the booth was picked up by New York. The referees on the field called it intentional grounding, and then all of a sudden, it miraculously wasn't. I thought that at the time in the game, the unnecessary roughness call on Bond was a bad call because he dove in as Harvey was fighting for extra yards to try and make sure that it stayed at 4th down. Yes, Harvey had landed by the time Bond had gotten there, but I thought it was a bad call. And then I think the one we all agree on, the egregious non-defensive pass interference call at the end of the game on Dallas Goedert, that instead of a Hail Mary spot at the end of the game, would have set Philly up for a 1st and goal play from 3 yards out to potentially win this football game. That being said, there were some real problems for Philadelphia in this game that we have to acknowledge. The passing game, they made it clear that they wanted to show that they could throw the ball, and they absolutely did, especially in the first half of this football game. Devonta Smith was 8 for 114. Denver ran a lot of man coverage, and with Pat Surtain on A.J. Brown, you would expect Devonta Smith to be the guy that eats more. But A.J. was still 5 for 43 on 8 targets, and if it wasn't for him slowing down on a route, he could have had 6 for over 100 and a touchdown. So the passing game did look better in this game. However, I think that Kevin Patullo or the Eagles media started to feel a little bit of pressure from the outside noise and media that they couldn't throw the ball, because when you're up 17-3 in the second half of a football game, you know who should get the ball? 26, Saquon Barkley. 6 carries for the best player in the NFL, and that's per the NFL Top 100. He was voted the best player in football. 6 carries is foul. He was averaging 5 yards a run. I don't care if, Denver came out and looked like they were stacking the box. Denver was dropping back and playing a lot of man coverage. They were blitzing sometimes, but Saquon Barkley is a guy that he could get past a blitz, and if he gets to the second level, he could be gone. You have to give this guy touches in the second half, and you have to control the clock. When we get to the play-by-play, which normally I don't do this a ton, but I think it's important to add some perspective. Philly opened up the second half with a good scripted drive, but these drives killed them right here. 5 plays, 23 yards, 2 minutes, punt. 3 plays, negative 16 yards, 1 minute, punt. 3 plays, negative 6 yards, 2 minutes, punt. 3 plays, 2 yards, 2 minutes. The Philadelphia Eagles won football games last year because once they got these leads, they were able to rely on the run and control the clock in the second half of games and not give teams opportunities to score 18 in the fourth quarter. There has to be a balance offensively. I'm happy that we saw that you could throw the ball, but then you completely went away from the run. Yes, it is a first-year offensive coordinator, but these are not complex stats. And then another reason that Philly lost this game, penalties, 12 for 121. I think that's in there the wrong way. Maybe not. Maybe that's because of the DPI. But Philly shot themselves a lot with penalties as well in this game. So when it comes down to this football game, am I worried about Philly going forward? No, I think they have enough talent, and they play the Giants, the Vikings, the Giants again. They'll probably be 7-1 in the next, by the end of the next 3 weeks. But it's been sloppy. It's not the level that they were putting out in the playoffs. And again, they're not going to be at that level right away. Tony Romo and Jim Nantz made this point. You're not going to retain your Super Bowl level at this point, but there is some cause for concern when it comes to, is the offensive coordinator capable of calling an offense that could be at a Super Bowl level? Am I worried about Philly winning games, winning their division, being a playoff team? I'm not. Am I worried a little bit about their ceiling with the current regime? A little bit. But at the end of the day, the Eagles are still who they are. And for Denver, I always thought that they were a good team. I think that they probably should be 4-1 after today's game. They sit at 3-2, but it's a good football club. The Indianapolis Colts put belt to ass on the Las Vegas Raiders, a 40-6 victory. Geno Smith, man, he ain't it. He ain't it. That was a bad deal from the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like 5 weeks into the season with them at 1-4, we're comfortable to say it. Ashton Genty starting to come around, but this offense cannot rely on their passing game whatsoever. I know Brock Bowers was out in this game, but Geno Smith has 6 touchdowns and 9 interceptions to open up the season this year. Like, he is turning the ball over at an alarming rate. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. 19 QBR in this game is an absolute disaster. And then the Colts, man, they probably should have beaten the Rams last week. They gave away 2 touchdowns. If they don't give those away, the Colts might be sitting here at 5-0, man. And I don't know if we're at the point. You guys can let me know in the comment section, because I am doing the Tuesday tier list tomorrow. Are we at the point that we can refer to the Colts as legit Super Bowl contenders? Because they're 4-1, 3-0 at home, still in the driver's seat firmly for the division after today. Daniel Jones, another solid day, 20 of 29, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 113 passer rating. Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion, should be in MVP conversations. The number of touchdowns this man has is insane. Week after week, he continuously makes plays when this team needs him to. He's been a threat in the receiving game this year. Tyler Warren looks like a smash home run first-round pick. The defense obviously had a massive game in this one. They had 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 8 pass deflections. They had the 2 interceptions, obviously. Laitu Latu's coming into his own. Like, this team in Indianapolis is starting to really perform. And in an AFC right now where there's a lot of question marks, I think week to week they can compete with anybody. I'm just saying that the Colts, through 5 weeks, have been one of, if not the most consistent team in football. And with the Bills loss today, they're now the number 1 seed in the AFC if the playoffs started today. Probably time to start taking the Colts very seriously. The New Orleans Saints get their first win of the season, picking up a 26-14 victory over the New York Giants. To me, the story of this game was a veteran-led Saints defense making life hell for a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back in Cam Scatterboo. It was always expected that there were going to be ups and downs for Jackson Dart, and I think this is a game where not having Malik Neighbors, not having his number 1 target, really showed, because I don't think there was a guy he felt he could truly depend on in these big spots. He started forcing some things. He had the 2 interceptions. You had a fumble from him. You had a fumble from Slayton, a fumble from Scatterboo. That's 5 turnovers. You're not going to win many football games with 5 turnovers, and they didn't win in this game. Am I completely selling stock on Jackson Dart now? No. I still think that the team has a bright future, but these kind of games are probably going to happen throughout the rest of this season. But I think that's why it's important to keep playing Dart now. Get the highs and lows out of the way this season and get something to build on. For the Saints, man, Rattler gets his first win ever as a starter. They actually played some really solid ball in this game, in my opinion. Shaheed had that 87-yard touchdown. Chris Olave has been pretty consistent. Wish my fantasy team saw more out of Juwan Johnson, but again, the story of this has got to be the defense. They only had 1 sack in this game, but again, Kool-Aid McKinstry had the 2 interceptions. You forced 5 turnovers. The defense looked strong. It was a battle of 2 teams that are probably going to be in the top 8 picks of the NFL draft, but New Orleans gets their first win of the season. Congratulations, Saints fans. The Dallas Cowboys travel to MetLife and pick up the 37-22 victory over the New York Jets. Dak Prescott has another good game, man. This one wasn't super high in terms of the passing yardage stats, but he was efficient. 18 of 29, 237, 4 touchdowns, no picks, a 127 passer rating. Javonte Williams has his most ever yards as a rusher with 135 and a touchdown. And the Cowboys offense looked like it was humming in this one. Another game without CeeDee Lamb. Another game that the Cowboys offense does pretty good against a decent Jets defense. You could look at the numbers here. A lot of this came in garbage time for the Jets. Justin Fields, at the end of the day, he is just not a quarterback you're going to win with. And I think that at this point in time, we could say that comfortably. I know there's still Justin Fields truthers and defenders out there, but the New York Jets are 0-5 for a reason. They have been in some winnable games, and Justin Fields just isn't good enough to get it done. He's a dynamic athlete, but I don't think he makes enough winning plays when it counts. Again, when this game was competitive, Justin Fields wasn't doing shit. When the Cowboys were able to play relaxed and, it's not a great defense to begin with, Justin Fields was able to move the football. I've seen some people talking about, Dak Prescott should be the MVP of the league when you get to this point. I got to pump the brakes on that. 2-1 doesn't lead the league in their argument is statistical. Matthew Stafford has better stats and a better record and is on a better team. So let's pump the brakes on that, but Dak has had back-to-back good weeks. The Carolina Panthers pick up a much-needed victory over the Miami Dolphins, 27-24. I actually thought Tua and the Dolphins offense played pretty well in this game. Darren Waller, I can't believe how good this guy is. I didn't think, to be honest, when he didn't play the first 3 games of the season, I thought, Darren Waller's not playing this year. 5 for 78 and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle had to step up into that wide receiver 1 role for a team that just played on Monday night and just lost Tyreek Hill, so not a lot of time to start scheming things. The offense looked pretty good, man, but the problem is their defense might be the worst in the NFL, second worst in the NFL. We'll talk about the Ravens in just a second here, but Rico Dowdle, and listen, this is no shade at Rico Dowdle. This man is an NFL player, an NFL running back, and I will never hate on the grind that he has put his body through to get there. But he's not a premier back. 23 carries, 206 yards, 9 yards a carry. The man was almost averaging a first down a carry and a touchdown in this game. 28 receiving yards. The man had over 230 all-purpose yards on your defense. And they didn't really get him rolling until the second quarter. Bryce Young was okay. That fumble that he had was a disaster. The pick he had was an absolute Stevie. So I'm not sure if I'm a Panthers fan if I'm bought into Bryce Young. I am bought into Tetero and McMillan, though. That guy is absolutely legit. These are 2 of, in my opinion, the worst teams in the NFL. But hey, the Carolina Panthers came out on top in this one because their defense is just a little bit better than Miami's at this point in time. And Miami, man, I don't know. It's not really McDaniel's side of the ball, but it feels like Miami might end up blowing it up this offseason. Another belt-to-ass matchup from one of the AFC South teams as the Houston Texans go to Baltimore and pick up the 44-10 victory. The Houston Texans, this is their first win ever in Baltimore. I believe their record now against the Ravens is 3-17, but I digress, Texans fans. You started off the year 0-3. You're now 2-3 going into your bye. Things got to feel pretty good. CJ Stroud has his best game maybe since his rookie season, 23 of 27, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, a 143.9 passer rating, and I get it. The Ravens defense was absolutely shot, right? But you have to put it in perspective. The Texans offense for the first 3 weeks of the season was really bad, and it looked like they started to figure some things out in the fourth quarter last week versus Tennessee, and they were able to carry over some of those things. Their run game was pretty legit in this game. Nick Chubb averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Woody Marks was decent. British Brooks actually was really solid as the fullback for them watching this game. Christian Kirk, his role expands. Nico Collins gets in the end zone. You had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 different Texans caught a pass in this. Oh, no, nine, excuse me. 11 different were targeted, 9 caught a pass. So at the end of the day, like Houston's offense, yes, it is Baltimore's really crappy defense and really crappy with backups at this point, but they needed a get-right game. They came out and absolutely performed in this one, and their defense is still so legit, man. They were legit in this one. Jalen Petrie had 2 interceptions. He was really, really solid for them. And then you get to Baltimore, man. And I think we all kind of knew this outcome was coming for Baltimore. Derrick Henry, I worry he might be washed. He always dominates the Texans, and I get it. They were probably just selling out to stop the run, but man, this Baltimore Ravens team is a mess. And each week that goes by, yes, there are injuries piling up for this team. So no, I am not just saying that, they blaming Lamar and this is trash and yada, yada, he'll never be good. I'm not saying that, but this feels like their season from hell. This feels like the 49ers last year. And with the way that Pittsburgh's playing football right now, they seem to be improving. Feels like their division to lose. Baltimore 1-4. There's some real skepticism that Lamar won't play next week. They play the Rams, so they're not winning that football game. 1-5 for Lamar coming back. That is just a tough hill to climb. That's a really tough hill to climb. Maybe they can get into the playoffs, but I don't know. The way that injuries are creeping up and the fact, like even before the injuries, the defense was pretty cheeks. I mean, it wasn't what it was today, but I think Baltimore's season, it might be cooked. It might be cooked. And for Houston, I think they might have given their season CPR at this point in time. Cam Ward gets his first ever win as an NFL starter as the Titans go into Arizona and pick up a 22-21 victory over the Cardinals. This game perfectly represented why nobody should ever trust the Arizona Cardinals again in their life. They were up, 21-6 in the fourth quarter of this game and lost. They had that weird interception that then turned into a fumble. DeMarcado just throws the ball. How many times are these NFL players, why are they so excited to just drop the ball as soon as they get into the end zone? Like, cross the plane with the ball. It's not that hard. It was just the most Cardinals loss ever. And this is why you could never trust this team. And this is why you can't trust Kyler Murray. Because he can't pull out wins in this situation. And the offensive play calling, by the way, pretty bad as well. For Cam Ward, I think Cam Ward's actually been playing pretty solid the first 5 weeks. I just don't think his receivers knew how to catch the ball. Calvin Ridley, finally fucking remembered in this game, 5 for 131. So hopefully that's a start of a good trend for them. Their offense did look decent in the fourth quarter, but again, to me, this loss said way more about the Arizona Cardinals than it did the Tennessee Titans, but you weren't going to go win this all year. I still think the Titans are one of the 5 worst teams in football, and the Cardinals let one of the 5 worst teams in football beat them at the end. And that is why I will never trust the Arizona Cardinals. Again, coming off of a long week to not be able to beat the 0-4 Titans is an absolute disgrace. It's an absolute and utter disgrace. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers moved to 4-1, defeating the Seattle Seahawks 38-35. The Buccaneers are now 3-0 on the road. Emeka Egbuka is fucking legit, bro. 7 for 163 and a touchdown. JSN 8 for 132 and a touchdown. Ohio State might be wide receiver you, bro. Those guys are just producing elite talent after elite talent, man. And if Marvin Harrison Jr. could ever figure it out, fucking forget about it. Baker Mayfield might be my MVP. And I know that when you go and look at your stats and your passing yardage leaders, like Baker's not going to be up there right now. Although Baker, 379, 2 touchdowns, 134.7 passer rating. How you doing in this fucking game with mind you, no Mike Evans, no Bucky Irving on the road against a tough Seattle team, a tough Seattle defense. He goes and gets that fucking win. But in terms of most valuable player, who is more valuable to their team right now than Baker Mayfield? Fourth quarter comes back this year. They've been undermanned, whether it's offensive line injuries, Mike Evans injuries, Chris Godwin injuries, Bucky Irving injuries, combine, move around some of them. This dude finds a way to win the fucking game. And you have to respect Baker for it. You have to respect Baker for it. I can't believe the Carolina Panthers once had both of these quarterbacks and didn't win anything. If that tells you the state of that organization. But Baker Mayfield right now. Is some of this because I put in a preseason bet on him to win MVP? Maybe. But you can't deny, in terms of the word valuable, there hasn't been a player more valuable to their NFL team this season than Baker Mayfield. And when all of his weapons are finally healthy, I think some of those statistical numbers might come too. It's a division that he's probably going to win. Just keep it in your mind. I think Baker Mayfield could be the MVP. Levante David made a huge play in this game. The interception that he had, that throw from Darnold that like bounced off of somebody else's helmet and he caught, because of course he did, because it's Levante David. Emeka Egbuka was great, like I said. Tez Johnson I thought was pretty solid. Chris Godwin getting back into things. Rashad White, not the most efficient runner, but with Bucky Irving out, he did solid at keeping the offense two-dimensional. I thought Sam Darnold played a really good game as well. 341 yards, 4 touchdowns, 135.4 passer rating. The interception that he had, it sucks. It did end up costing them the game, but it was a weird one, man. Bounced off a helmet and right into Levante David's hands. Again, the Buccaneers just made more plays, but these are both really, really solid teams. I think even off of a loss on my tier list, I might move Seattle up just because of how effective their offense has been. Ken Walker has a really solid day. JSN looks like a top 10 receiver in football. And again, we know that their defense is good. We know that this defense in Seattle is good. I just think Baker's playing at an unreal level right now. Like, Baker is playing like the guy who was the #1 overall draft pick for a reason. He's a gunslinger, and he's an absolute killer. This was by far the most fun game of the day. The Detroit Lions advanced to 4-1, defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 37-24. At the end of the day, the Bengals defense is just not that good, and Jake Browning continues to give the ball away at a high clip. I know that Cincinnati, made this game close. They scored 21 in the fourth quarter, but when the game was in balance, it was just never close. Jared Goff is fine, obviously. The Detroit Lions was able to execute whatever they wanted when they wanted to against the Bengals defense. It did feel like to me they actually did kind of like take their foot off the gas. David Montgomery has a passing touchdown in this game and a rushing touchdown in his return to Cincinnati. Amon-Ra, it's just the most consistent 8 for 100 outside of Puka in the National Football League. He gets that again. Jahmyr Gibbs is pretty solid in this game. And again, when the game was in balance, Detroit gets the 3 interceptions. Anzalone, Amik Robertson, Kirby Joseph, they get 2 sacks. They were just doing what they wanted. These end of game stats here, the 21 points for Cincinnati, maybe it's some momentum, maybe it's something to build off of. Jamar Chase is still 1 of 1. He got wide, butt-ass naked open on that one play, and Jake Browning, I don't think he would have had a job if he wasn't able to hit him on that one. But at the end of the day, the Lions are still the Lions, and the Bengals are still just, in my opinion, committing a war crime by not trading for Jameis Winston to try and stay competitive in this division that, even if Joe Burrow is not coming back this year, is probably winnable with a competent quarterback at this point in time. Like, I know that I said that the Bengals defense just isn't good, but you're not putting them in a position to succeed by having Jake Browning out there either if you're Cincinnati. So Detroit keeps it rolling. It's a great Sunday Night Football game next week versus Kansas City. Can't wait for that. And Cincinnati is still just buns. The Commanders go into LA and pick up a 27-10 victory over the Chargers. This was a really big game for me because I wanted to know what the Commanders were going to look like with Jaden Daniels back. You remember Jaden Daniels hasn't played the last 2 weeks. The last time we saw him was Thursday Night Football when the Packers made him look like, not really relevant. And like, oh no, is this guy going to go into a sophomore slump? And Bill Krosky, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had a really, really strong game in this one. He's averaging 8 yards per carry. He's been so good for them when he gets touches. I think he is starting to take over this backfield, and rightfully so. Jaden was fine in this game. I thought, obviously, you missed a lack of Terry McLaurin out there. When you look at these stats, like Deebo Samuel, 8 for 96 and a touchdown, hell of a trade from them because he's their only real legit threat out there. McCaffrey gets a nice catch, and Jalen Lane's cool, and, Krosky-Merritt, but Zach Ertz, no catches in this game is really, really surprising. And we'll talk about the Chargers in a second because I think a lot of their problems are stemming from their offensive line injuries, but their defense is still absolutely legit, and the Commanders were able to do what they wanted to do offensively, and Jaden Daniels executed at what I thought was a pretty decent level, not committing turnover-worthy plays. When we get to the Charger side of things, I really think the offensive line injuries are starting to catch up to them. I think they're up to like 4 or 5 injuries now on that offensive line, Hampton got hurt in this game at a really bad time for them because then they had that fumble at the 1 yard line, and then Washington drives down 99 yards to close out the game. But, it was 20-10 at that point. Los Angeles was on the 1 yard line. Things would have been very different if they scored that touchdown. But at the end of the day, the offensive line is completely cooked right now. And for that, we'll see. I'm thinking about moving them down into playoff team tier on my tier list just because at their current state, they can't go on a Super Bowl run because the offensive line just isn't good enough right now. They amazed me with how well they played post Rashawn Slater injury, but now Joe Alt, Becton was in and out of this game, other guys as well. It's just really, really tough. Hampton's in a walking boot now. The Chargers, I thought, opened up the season looking really good, and then, injuries bit them, and it seems like a Chargers curse at this point. They play Miami next week, should be a get-right game, but if you're a Chargers fan, and I know there's multiple Chargers fans that watch the channel, my heart breaks for you guys because whether you believed it or not, I think healthy, your team certainly could have pushed for an AFC championship appearance this year, and once you're there, anything can kind of happen, but the offensive line injuries really caught up to them. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback hits. It's just tough to win a game like that, man. Justin Herbert did what he could, did have a bad interception. And again, kind of like we mentioned earlier with the Eagles, and, we'll talk about it in one more second with Patriots-Bills, but you lose this turnover battle. A lot of times you lose football games. When you're up against a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who is really talented, you can only give them so many looks. I feel for you Chargers fans and for the Commanders fans. Great to see Jaden back out there and great to see him leading to victories. And then lastly, Sunday Night Football. There's a full 13-minute reaction up on the channel right now if you want to see an extended version of my thoughts on this football game. But massive statement win from the Patriots. Drake May looks like a legit star to superstar quarterback for them for the future. They got to start getting Travion Henderson involved more. Stephon Diggs ramped up. Looks like he could be a legit wide receiver 1. And the Patriots, who feel like they probably should have beaten the Steelers 2 weeks ago, they feel like they should be 4-1. I'm not worried about Buffalo. They didn't execute. Josh Allen threw a pick. And again, I talked about it just a second ago in the Chargers game, but you lose the turnover battle 3-1. You're likely going to lose the football game. New England made less mistakes, and they have a quarterback who can execute their system and make big-time plays when he needs to his receiver with his legs. And that was the game, man. Drake May proved that the Patriots should be respected, that he should be respected. And I think New England's headed to the playoffs this year. Obviously, I think Buffalo is too, and I'm sure Buffalo will probably still win the division. This was a big, big win for the New England Patriots. As always, guys, those are just my thoughts. Be sure to let me know yours in the comment section down below. It is 1 a.m. here Eastern Standard Time as I'm recording this, and I got work at 9 a.m. So I would really appreciate a thumbs up for this. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that sub button. I'll catch you next time. Peace.